Hi, Gene Monterastelli here, the editor of tappingqna.com. The video that you are about to watch is a conversation that was a part of this year's 24 Hours of Tapping. The 24 Hours of Tapping is a fundraiser for the amazing work that is done by the Peaceful Heart Network. The Peaceful Heart Network has brought tapping to migrants, refugees, prisoners, and the underprivileged in over 30 countries all over the world. As you watch this video, if you learned something, if you were touched by it, if you were inspired by it, the easiest way to say thank you is to support the work of the Peaceful Heart Network. To do that, all you need to do is go to 24hoursoftapping.com/support. And as you look in the description and the first comment down below, you will see a direct link to that. I hope you enjoy this conversation. The next person that I would like to welcome to our virtual stage is Abi O'Donovan. Abi is an accredited, certified EFT practitioner and sexual spiritual integration coach. She's based in Ireland and she offers clinical EFT and divine grounding tantric coaching online worldwide to men who are experiencing sexual problems. Please, please, please welcome to the virtual stage, Abi. So one of the questions that I've been asking almost everybody we've talked to over the course of this entire process is, how do people end up doing the work that they do? And so I'm just kind of fascinated, like, what brought you to this particular work? Where is your interest come from? Why have you decided to dedicate your time and your energy to helping folks in this particular way?
Well, if anybody had said to me, some time back that this is what I would be doing at this stage of my life, I would never have believed them because it wasn't anything, that I'd ever planned. But
Right.
it's kind of now, a long story, not for today. But I've had this whole kind of journey with my own
Mhm.
sexuality and sexual spiritual connection, for most of my life. But anyway, in 2013, I trained as a Tantra practitioner doing Tantra coaching and Tantra massage and that. And when I started, I was working then with men, with women, and with couples, or at least that was the intention. But right from the start, about 99% of people who came to see me were men.
Mhm.
And it didn't take too long before I had so many men who were coming saying, I'm having a problem with this and I'm having a problem with that. And I was kind of, like, okay, I've been very classically trained in Tantra massage, like opening energy
Right.
channels in the body, working with the breath, moving energy through the body and that. But, and I think at the time, like it was like, oh yeah, this will be all blissful and beautiful. And then all of these people were coming with all of these problems. And I'm like, what's going on here? And then one day, what happened was a man came to see me and he said he was looking to have a tantra massage, and I said fine. So I always ask clients at the beginning, what's your intention for the session? And this man said to me, well, he said, I've had a bit of a problem having erections for a few months and I'm hoping that the session might help in some way. So I thought, okay, fine. So when we were sitting talking, and then I'm getting this sense, he's a real kind of quiet spoken guy, lovely man, and I'm just getting this sense, I'm wondering, is there somewhere in his life that he's not standing up for himself or not
Mm.
speaking up for himself? And I just asked him, I said to him, I said, would you mind, I said, doing a little experiment with me? And he was kind of like, well, okay. So I got him to his feet, and I said to him, I said, I'm just wondering, I said, when was the last time that you've ever really roared from your belly? And he kind of looked at me, as you might, and
Yeah.
and it was like that had never been anything that had happened in his life before. So I said to him, right, well, I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to begin roaring from my belly, I said to him, and the building's completely empty. There's nobody to hear you. And I'm going to invite you to just follow me. And, let's just kind of see what happens. So anyway, it took him a couple of minutes to get into it, because naturally he was a bit self-conscious at first. Well, once he did, he just roared and roared and he started moving his body. And I was really encouraging him, like move your body anyway at once. So anyway, after a few minutes, he kind of just came back into a space of calm and we sat down again. And I never asked him what that was about or anything. But what happened was that he didn't have a problem having an erection after that. And this blew my mind, you know, because it was like he had one energetic shift. And whereas he could have gone through the rest of his life thinking, I have a sexual dysfunction, that one energetic shift just shifted something. So after that, what happened was I was still, you know, seeing a lot of guys were coming with these problems. And I just got fascinated with the question, what's really crippling a man's sexuality today? That's and so what I decided I wanted to do was I wanted to learn from the men who were coming to see me, you know. And so over the next kind of time, like I started to kind of really notice certain things. I mean, I started to observe certain things. I mean, you know, one of them was like, even, you know, the 4 things that a guy will do that will actually prime his body to ejaculate quickly. And, you know, like I won't go into all of that, but all that information is available to download on my website. But, you know, but then the other thing that I discovered as well was when I started asking certain questions, you know, like, what do you mind me asking you, what were you thinking the moment before that happened, whatever it was that he was complaining of, whether, you know, he couldn't stay hard, or, you know, he ejaculated too early or whatever. And what I noticed was that they were all kind of saying the same thing. And what I kind of thought was, Jean, that, you know, this is like, it was fascinating to me, because it's like when you have a small group of people, you know, who are coming and they have a problem, you can say, yeah, that's a personal problem, right? But what I found was that actually it was more the case, my understanding was more the case that a guy was having a personal experience of what's now a cultural phenomenon. One of the things that I discovered was that there's this like disempowering dialogue that goes on between the mind and the genitals, and an incredible amount of incessant negative self-talk, you know, and what's happening in this is that the man is then kind of like, you know, he's operating really genitals and mind, but he's not present, and he's not in his body. And I used to get, like, you know, a lot of men talking about how, you know, they kind of feel sometimes they're just going through the motions, you know, they're not really there. And the reality is because, you know, because they're not. And so that's, sorry, that's a long answer to it.
That's really great.
That's how it started.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
And inside of that, as we just kind of dive into the conversation about this, in your answer, I can now understand why, when we were like going back and forth before our conversation about how you bristled at the fact of using the word dysfunction in the title of our conversation, because dysfunction implies a mechanical problem. It implies something that is going on in a different way, where what you're talking about is presence and what we are thinking or what we are not thinking, and how we are present and how we are not, and how that impacts the way that we're able to be present, both physically, emotionally, biologically, in that particular way. And so it, you know, now that I've heard that, it makes a lot more sense that this is the way that you think about the problem as you're engaging with it in this particular way.
Yeah, and what I found was that if, you know, working with a guy, that I could get him to come down out of his head, you know, and into his, and actually really land in his body, you know, like that's when kind of everything really, you know, changed for him, you know. And it's like, you know, and when you you know, the other side of that then too is that for a woman, you know, who's with a guy, let's say, who has, you know, like some problem, it may be, you know, with erectile issues, or, you know, like, you know, maybe, you know, not being able to last or whatever. What's often going on is that a man is in like what I call this bubble of worry, and he's worrying about, you know, am I going to last? Am I going to be able to keep it up? Am I going to perform? This is all the self-talk, you know, that goes on.
Yeah.
But what's actually happening is that when he's in that process, and it's like he's really in a stress response, his body is actually running, you know, like stress hormones, and you know, and it's like this, he's kind of almost like in this you know, sympathetic nervous like activation, you know, in a sense.
Yeah.
And what's actually happening is that the woman that he's with feels like, you know, for her, it feels like he's just not there.
Right.
And that is something, you know, that yeah, is very, very difficult for him. That's probably the most difficult part, you know, for a woman, is to be with somebody, you know, that she loves, she's in a relationship with, and, you know, to feel that he's actually like yeah, not fully present with her at all.
Yeah, I can see how that could feel very, very personal in that
Mm.
particular moment. That, you know, to be in a circumstance where I must not be enough if this is what is going on in this particular circumstance. Like I could very, very easily see a partner writing that particular story in that particular moment, which now then starts to compound the issues in all sorts of ways. And
Totally.
so, yeah, and so as you're talking about that anxiety that they're experiencing as they go into it, like one of the things I'm always fascinated about is there is the issue that we are experiencing, and then there is the emotion about the issue, which that compounds the experience that we are having at that particular moment. So there is a problem, which is the problem. And then there's the anxiety about the problem, which then compounds and multiplies that, which, you know, in a circumstance like this makes it even harder. So then what are you mentioned like not being present. What are some of the kind of like, in your experience, the list of most common, I don't know if root causes are the right word, but like the emotional stories that are going on inside of the man that is leading to this particular consequence?
Yeah, I mean, like there's a huge range. I mean, you know, like some of the ones that are at the core of this, you know, are like, you know, fear of what's going to happen, you know, the whole thing around, like, you know, maybe you know, stress. Like
Hmm.
very often what I find is that you know, there's something that I call the firewall delusion, right? Which is where a man will kind of, you know, he will think, because this is, you know, a problem that I'm experiencing with my sexuality, it's only my sexuality that's affected. It's like my you know, the rest of my life has no impact on it at all. But here's, you know, but here's something, Jean, you know, like when you go and look at any studies that have been done, you know, in recent years on sexual dysfunction, right? You know, I mean, it will talk about, you know, the prevalence and all of that, and it's kind of a lot more widespread than people realize at all, you
Hmm.
know. And a big part of this is that, like, you know, men don't actually really talk about it at all. I mean, I was talking with a man in America there a while ago, you know, and because I'm also thinking too, you know, like, well, you know, there may be cultural differences in different parts of the world as well, you know, when
Yeah.
it comes to these things. And I said to this man, I said, well, I said, you've been around men's groups a long time. I said, but surely, you know, guys talk about them in those groups. He said, no, he said, I've been around men's groups for 30 years. And he said, they'll talk about relationships and they'll talk about like a lot of things. But he said, I've never heard them talk about that. So
Hmm.
because there's such a silence, you know, like a lot of people, I mean, I was surprised when I went and actually did a little bit of research into this, because, you know, at the prevalence, but then what's happening is that you get a lot of guys who are self-diagnosing
Hmm.
erectile dysfunction, and quite incorrectly as well, you know. So you know, so like for instance, someone might come in and they're saying, you know, I have a sexual dysfunction, right? And I'd ask them, you know, well, look, you feel, you know, how comfortable do you feel to tell me a little bit about what's going on, you know? And it turns out that he's had maybe 3 or 4 episodes of whatever the problem that's manifesting is, and that because of that, he's labeling himself as having a sexual dysfunction, whereas in the
Yeah.
DSM-5, what, you know, they say is, for like, for this, you know, for you to have a sexual dysfunction, it has to be something that is, you know, like lasting 6 months or more, have a negative impact, you know, like on your life, and also then it has to be happening 75 to 100% of the time. But you
Hmm.
know, so just one of the things that I just want to kind of like really draw attention to is that when a man says I have sexual dysfunction, it's like he's can be disempowering himself by doing
Yeah.
that, because that's not the case at all. But sorry, you were asking me about the root causes, and
Yeah.
like that can be one, even just the belief I have, because
Yeah.
something happens once. You see, here's something, Jean, that like people today are just under, men today just feel under so much pressure, to perform well in this, perform well in that, do well in everything. And sometimes it can be the case where, because it's like, you need, energy for an erection, you need energy to hold your sexual charge as well. Like very often the root cause can be as simple as he's just plain exhausted.
Yeah.
And so so like with what I call the firewall delusion, it's like he will look at the problem and saying, well, I can't last, this is my problem, or I can't get out, whatever, this is my problem. But the problem may be that he's structured his life in such a way that he never takes a break. He's always and so like all of his energy is like he's got unrealistic expectations of himself, of like what he can do. I mean, like I remember one time there was a guy who came to me, and and he was talking about how he commuted, like so many hours to work. He didn't have time, to take a break for lunch. He was eating lunch at his desk, and then he went back home, and all the things he did at weekends. And I asked him, and I said to him, well, like, when do you get like time to rest or downtime, like, hobbies, do you have time with friends? And he kind of looked at me like as if I was talking a foreign language, because to him I was, and but like he was kind of, so he was stretched so thin that, when you think of it in nature, right, when there's like there's an awful lot of like stress going on, it's like the first thing to go is reproductive function, because survival is more important.
Yeah.
So very often it can be, where, somebody is actually just very, very stressed, and so that can be one, then other things are, like past experiences that they've had. And excuse me, past experiences that they've had, because it doesn't actually take much, for a guy to kind of start going down a path where he's having problems, because all it takes is maybe, maybe one night he might have a bit too much to drink, he's too tired or whatever, and, things don't work. And then he's afraid that it's going to happen again. And very often, like the root cause can be just as simple as that, and and one of the things that I often suggest is, that like men look for help earlier rather than later. Because if you think about it like this, right, when a guy starts having problems, whatever the cause may be, it's like as though he's walking into a forest, and if he walks in a little way and goes, oh, it's getting dark in here, maybe I should turn around and come back, he can do that. But if he goes like really deep into the heart of the forest, and all of a sudden he realizes, oh, it's really dark in here, and he's walking around in circles, and he can't remember how he got there, and he can't find his way back out, that's that's kind of what tends to happen. I mean, I've seen guys, and they will say, like, yeah, I've had this problem for X number of years, and so, but when you kind of start having something, that's the time really to kind of go. And one of the things that I think, Jean, too, is that like when somebody's having a problem, right, I always kind of look at it from the point of, like, where's his energy? If it's like my one of my questions is, it's like, if his energy isn't in his pants, where is it? And that's kind of, like where really, like with EFT, we can do like such wonderful work really in like, well, where is his energy? Is he got it invested into something ahead of him, or into anything in the past, which can be any number of root causes. Like, I mean, Could I tell you a story about a guy who had a really powerful experience with EFT?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
what was actually at the heart of his root cause for him was internal conflict. Because when anybody's in a bit of an internal conflict, right, they don't realize there's so much energy that goes into that. That often, one of the things that can really go is, your sexual function, and because it's not necessary, right, for survival. So anyhow, this guy came to me and he was saying about how he had just no energy and no libido at all, and he didn't know, what the problem was, and so I asked him, I said to him, well, what's your sense, like of what, might help with this? And he said, well, if I have more confidence, and so I asked him, well, I said, what do you think might give you more confidence? Either something that you'd like to do or stop doing. And his whole face lit up. And he said to me, well, he said, and he mentioned there was a skill he wanted to learn. And he said, I wanted to learn this for years, he says. And then he goes, but he said, I tried before. And he said, I failed. So he said, now he says, I don't know whether to do it or not. So he was really in this will I, won't I kind of thing, So, and like one of the things that, and I've really learned this, with EFT, is the value of going slow. Because like everybody talk about how quick EFT is and this, that, and the other, but sometimes there's real value in going slow. So, I said to him, okay, that's really interesting. And I said to him, what would be your first step, in like, if you did decide that you wanted to learn this? And he decided that what he needed was to get the equipment he needed and to find a teacher. So we actually set those two things as his goal for the 6 weeks, right? And people might think, well, why would you work on something that small, 6 weeks? But one of the things I realized is that when a man starts to feel like a winner right from the start with what it is that we're working on, that changes so much right from the beginning, because it's like, okay, you're looking to maybe, what's going to happen at the end of the time you're going to be working together. But it's what really happens from the start that sets the tone for that as well, I found. So anyhow, with this man, he met his goal, but after that, he came back to me and he was saying how that now he's been 30 years married, and from going from like having no energy, no libido, not even any interest, that himself and his wife were back making love 4 times a week, and sometimes even twice a day. And and like, to me, it was like, that was really, showing how something like an internal conflict that a person may not even be aware of can be behind this. And I mean, that was now a couple of years ago, and his marriage and his life has continued to flourish since.
And so in all that you've just shared there's a number of really great things. I want to underline and highlight a couple of them, then we continue the conversation. The first, and this is, I think, for all issues, not just this particular issue that we're dealing with, is this idea that we emotionally respond to the world the way we describe it. And if I'm describing myself as having a particular problem, I'm going to emotionally respond to the world and myself as having that particular problem. And sometimes those problems are true and sometimes they're not. But for something like this, because we're dealing with something that is physical, having stress inside of the body, we know how that impacts us physically. And we're able to acknowledge, oh, it deals with my sleep and my hair is falling out, and look at my skin. And like, we recognize those sorts of things. But to be able to make that particular connection here, where regardless what the first instance someone had was, where it didn't work out the way that they wanted to, all of a sudden it's now, oh, this is a problem, which then brings stress into the equation, which means that it is more likely to happen because I'm bringing stress into the equation. And so it starts to become this almost loop of self-fulfillment where, of course it didn't work, I feel bad about it because of course it didn't work, and I feel bad about it, and of course it didn't work, and we kind of go down that particular path. And so I think that's just something I think it's important for us to recognize, that when we define something a particular way, we're going to respond to it inside of all of that, and kind of recognizing what's there in there. The other thing I think that's really fascinating is just kind of the way that, like, you'd mentioned how you were surprised that men do not talk about something like this. And on a very primal level, it's something that is like, it's this issue of vitality and worth. And in a space where I can talk about where I'm struggling with lots of things, like there are things that feel, in all of our settings, there are things that feel comfortable for me to complain about and things that I don't feel comfortable complaining about.
Yeah.
And so culturally being in a circumstance where it's okay for me to talk about struggling with work and struggling maybe being a parent and struggling financially, that this then comes to the edge where it's just like, because of the taboo and the way we deal with that, it becomes an undermining thing, especially when something isn't culturally normative. We feel like we are more on the outside than we may be for any issue at all. That I've always thought, like, a significant chunk of my work as a practitioner is simply normalizing the human experience and helping people to recognize that what they're struggling with is not like, we all think that we are these special little snowflakes and we have unique experiences, but there's a huge part of the human experience is the human experience. Part of the reason why practitioners are so skilled and can move so quickly is because there is this commonality inside of all of that. And so recognizing that we can kind of, like, when we have conversations like this for men or their partners, getting a chance to, like, normalize that particular thing, like, immediately just takes a little air out of the balloon and takes a little of the stress off, that makes it easier for us to engage with it this way. So as you're doing this work, how does medical diagnosis and intervention enter into this particular conversation? Because I think it's like, like when, I get a knife stuck in my chest, I'm not like, even though I have a knife in my chest, I love and accept myself. Like there's a time and a place for all of this stuff. Like, I need to deal with the wound before I can deal with that sort of stuff. So as you're engaging with this and you're working with folks, like, how do you think about and how do you engage with, like, looking at this? Because you mentioned, like, there are people who actually have a physical issue of dysfunction. How does that work into the conversations, the work that you do? How do you address and approach that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I always, like, say it to somebody who wants to work with me, especially if they have an erectile problem, because that can be the sign of, like, a serious health condition, affecting circulation and all of that. So, the way it is with me is, like, I'm very clear that you need to get, a medical all clear first of all, to make sure that there's nothing, medically, like, awry or whatever. And I'm so kind of clear with that one, that like, that has to be ruled out first. And I mean, the way that I work is, like, because I have had men who've said, like, I know, like, it's not that long since I went to the doctor, how long? A couple of years maybe, which could be 9 or 10 years,
Right, absolutely,
and
yeah.
so look, so the way, what I say to them, well, look, maybe where we need to start is, we can work with your fear of going to the doctor. But, we have to, like, kind of, make sure there isn't some underlying condition for this before we start working on all of the energetic, stress related and emotional things. And that's just very simply, how I kind of approach that. Because I just think it's the sensible thing to do. You have to rule out first of all. And then, the other side to it too, Jean, is that, like, there are men who, let's say, would have, like, sexual dysfunction as a result of, perhaps, like, maybe medical treatment that they needed to save their life, drugs they need to be on, like, for their lives, and, maybe side effects of surgeries and injuries, and, certain kind of, like, medical conditions can have, problems as a result of those as well, but, like, what EFT can be helpful for with those, even though it may not, do much for the sexual function, but it can help a person to be more, like kind of come to a place of peace with what they may not be able to change,
Yeah. And again, like going back to that idea of the emotion about the issue before we deal with the issue, like that becomes a really easy, gentle doorway for us to walk through, And I think, the other thing that's just, again, that's so valuable about this is just like normalizing a conversation and bringing it out into the air. We talked about a little bit earlier about this idea of how it compounds. And if we're not like giving people space to safely have conversations, then it's not going to stay the same. It's going to get worse. And being in a circumstance where we engage with that. So as we kind of wrap our time up here, as always, we'd love to do a little tapping around something like this. So I will happily be the audience surrogate. I would encourage everybody to tap along with us as we're doing this, as always. Great. Even if this isn't a place that you normally live, we can all get some borrowing benefits from all of this stuff. So set the table. Let me play client for you. How can we engage with this in a useful way?
Okay, great. So what I'm going to suggest we'll do is just some, I'm just going to invite you to think about maybe, a time in perhaps the future, that you might be, let's just say, concerned about something that's going to happen, like maybe in an intimate situation, like with a partner or whatever. So so if I was to ask you, Jean, just thinking forward, like, to the next time maybe that you're going to be intimate with your partner, and what is it that you that you might think about that could happen that you wouldn't want to happen?
Yeah. So like the sense of letting someone else down and feeling insecure and not enough because they want something that I can't provide.
Okay. Okay. So when you think about that, letting your partner down, and that she wants something you can't provide, what's the emotion that you have?
So the emotion that would go along with that would be like kind of twofold: insecurity and inadequacy. So like inadequacy being an external thing of being inadequate in the set, and then insecure, not feeling like I am enough internally. So there's kind of like an external like the emotion is going external towards the other, and the emotional internal about how I'm evaluating and judging myself.
Okay. So okay, great. And if I was to ask you about, like 0 to 10, how strong does that insecurity and inadequacy feel?
Let's say it's a 7.
7. Okay, great. And is there anywhere in your body, Jean, that you're feeling that you're aware of?
So as we imagine this and play this chest, like nervousness in the chest.
Yeah, that's all. That's a place that's often felt. All right. Okay. So even though I have this fear. Oh, sorry. You said inadequacy and insecurity. Inadequacy and insecurity. Yeah. Just thinking about the next time that I'm going to be intimate with my partner.
Just thinking about the next time I'm going to be intimate.
That I'm going to let her down.
That I'm going to let her down.
That she's going to want something that I can't provide.
That she's going to want something I can't provide.
And I deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
So even though when I think of the next time that I'll be intimate with my partner,
when I think about the next time I'll be intimate with my partner,
I'm feeling this insecurity and inadequacy.
I'm feeling insecurity and inadequacy.
That I'm going to let my partner down.
That I'm going to let them down.
That she wants something that I can't provide.
That she wants something that I can't provide.
And I feel insecure and inadequate thinking about that.
I feel insecure and inadequate thinking about that.
And I still deeply and completely accept myself.
I still deeply and completely accept myself.
So even though just thinking about the next time I'll be intimate with my partner,
So even though thinking about the next time I'll be intimate,
I'm feeling this insecure
I'm feeling insecure
and it's inadequacy,
and inadequacy,
that I might be letting her down,
that I might be letting her down,
that I can't provide what she wants.
that I can't provide what she wants.
And I'm feeling this in my chest.
And I'm feeling it in my chest.
And I deeply and completely accept myself.
And I deeply and completely accept myself.
Okay, so we're going to just tap through the points.
Mm-hmm.
This insecurity and inadequacy.
This insecurity and inadequacy.
I might let my partner down.
I might let my partner down.
This insecurity and inadequacy.
This insecurity and inadequacy.
This insecurity and inadequacy in my chest.
This insecurity and inadequacy in my chest.
This insecurity and inadequacy.
This insecurity and inadequacy.
That she'll want something that I can't provide.
That she'll want something I can't provide.
This insecurity and inadequacy.
This insecurity and inadequacy.
This insecurity and inadequacy in my chest.
This insecurity and inadequacy in my chest.
This insecurity and inadequacy that I let my partner down.
This insecurity and inadequacy that I'll let my partner down.
Okay, so just taking a breath, Jean, and just 0 to 10. How's that feeling for you now?
So I don't have a partner right now. So but even inside of all of that, doing this, like there is like, you know, what was a 7 feels like a 4. What was tight now just feels like energy, but there's not like, there's still something there, but there's not the like compression that goes along with oftentimes when I feel physical resistance in my body, oftentimes that resistance feels a little tight for me. And so like there's energy there, but it doesn't have the denseness that it had before. And there's this gentle like feeling of acceptance for who I am as a person, beyond something that is a specific moment or a specific act. Like there is like a gentleness as I imagine this scenario of being accepted in a different way, which makes me feel more comfortable.
Yeah, great. Yeah. And if we were, you know, kind of like in a, you know, a client practitioner situation, you know, like, you know, like I'd ask you, you know, a little bit more about, you know, then go into the specifics and, you know, like really work to kind of hear all of that. So yeah, great.
Yeah, and the other consequences, I just like feel energy in my whole body as well. Like it's not just construction, but like there is just a greater sense of just like flow and lack of tightness and just everywhere in my system. It's almost like as the tension, you know, it's like unkinking a hose. Like as the tension relaxed, all of a sudden the whole system just feels lighter inside of all of that.
Brilliant. Yeah, sounds beautiful.
Awesome. Well, Abby, this is great. I like, you know, when we were going through the process and we're like figuring out what we were going to do in these 24 hours, myself and the team was really excited that we were going to have a chance to have this particular conversation because like you talked about, like it's something that is not talked about and it's something that impacts both people in the partnership. And being able to be in a circumstance where we can normalize this a little bit, make it a little less scary, and then giving people access to an approach to it, I think is super, super valuable. So I just want to thank you very much for your time, but also thank you for like doing this particular work. You know, like all of these little corners that we carve out just to make the human experience better is a good thing. And I just love seeing tapping applied in so many cool different ways.
Yeah, no, it's an honor and a privilege. It really is to do this work. And if there's just one thing, you know, that I could finish on, you know, which
please.
is really how, you know, like when you're doing this work, it's like the way I kind of see it is, it's like, it's, you know, you're working with the man, but as you said, it's like, you know, it's how it affects his relationship, but also
Yep.
beyond that, his family, you know, like his community,
Mhm.
his whole society. Because like when, you know, like a man is really like comes, you know, comes out of that like disempowering dialogue back into that state of like real integration and, you know,
Mhm.
and alignment within himself, it's like, you know, yeah, we all benefit from that. And so there's definitely like a, you know, a ripple effect that I
And
just
as you're
love.
talking about that sense of, you know, that confidence we experience confidence in one part of our life, it's easier for us to experience confidence in lots of parts of our life, and vice versa. When we feel insecure in one part of our life, it's really easy for that to be corrosive in other parts of our lives. And so every single part that we can shore up in this way just makes our experience so much better. So I really appreciate your time. Thanks a lot, Abby.
Real pleasure. Thank you, Jean. Take care.
If you found this interview inspiring, I would encourage you to support the Peaceful Heart Network by going to 24hoursoftapping.com/support or clicking the link in the description. And you will see on the screen right now a playlist to all of the interviews from this year's and last year's 24 Hours of Tapping. I hope you enjoyed those as well.